Coffee, a beverage that fuels countless morning rituals and late-night endeavors, is far more than a simple drink. It stands as a global phenomenon, a profound cultural touchstone, and an economic powerhouse. Its omnipresence in modern life prompts a fascinating inquiry. How did this humble bean, originating from a distant land, achieve such widespread dominion across the world? This exploration delves into the rich, complex, and often surprising history of coffee, tracing its extraordinary journey from mythical origins in ancient Ethiopia to its pivotal role in intellectual revolutions, colonial expansion, and the emergence of a multi-billion-dollar industry. The narrative of coffee's discovery commences in the misty highlands of Ethiopia, a region widely acknowledged as its birthplace. Popular accounts place this seminal event around the 9th century CE, or possibly as early as 800 AD, centering on a young goat herder named Kaldi from the Kaffa province. Kaldi's attention was drawn to his flock exhibiting an unusual, vigorous energy, seemingly dancing after consuming the vibrant red berries from an unfamiliar shrub. Intrigued by this peculiar observation, Kaldi decided to sample the berries himself, experiencing a similar invigorating boost that left him feeling alert and excitable. Excited by his newfound discovery, Kaldi eagerly presented the berries to a local monastery. Initially, the monks, viewing the stimulating properties with deep suspicion, condemned them as the devil's work and, in an act of fervent rejection, hurled them into a roaring fire. However, as the beans roasted in the flames, a distinctly beautiful and heavenly aroma permeated the air. Recognizing their error, the monks quickly raked the beans from the embers, crushed them, and, in an attempt at preservation, dissolved them in hot water. The resulting dark brew, when consumed, proved remarkably effective in helping them remain awake and focused during their long, arduous nightly devotions and prayers. The enduring prevalence of the Kaldi legend, despite its consistent characterization as apocryphal, particularly in Western literature, illustrates humanity's deep-seated need for compelling origin stories. Such narratives, even if not strictly factual, possess immense cultural resonance, providing a simple yet memorable beginning for a complex global phenomenon. The narrative power of this tale is so profound that Kaldi coffee and dancing goat have become popular names for coffee shops and roasting companies worldwide, including Ethiopia's largest coffee chain. This demonstrates how cultural narratives can be effectively leveraged for branding and commercial identity, connecting people to the cherished origins of a beloved product. While the Kaldi story offers a captivating account, historical scholarship suggests that the true discovery of coffee's invigorating properties more likely lies with the nomadic Oromo, or Gala, people of Ethiopia and northern Kenya. These communities are believed to have consumed the coffee cherries for their stimulating effects long before any formalized brewing methods emerged. Coffee, specifically Coffea arabica, which is indigenous to Ethiopia and exhibits significant genetic diversity within the species, remains profoundly woven into the cultural fabric of Ethiopian society. The traditional coffee ceremony, known as Jebanibuna, serves as a powerful symbol of hospitality, friendship, and community bonding. Embodying the warm and inviting nature of Ethiopian culture, Ethiopian coffees are highly prized for their vibrant and complex taste profiles, often featuring distinct floral and fruity notes, a testament to their unique origin and the prevalence of sustainable, shade-grown farming practices. However, the romanticized narrative of coffee's origins stands in stark contrast to the economic realities faced by Ethiopian coffee farmers today. Despite Ethiopia being the undisputed birthplace of coffee and its largest export, many farmers endure immense hardship, sometimes earning as little as $20 USD per month. In 2003, coffee prices plummeted to historic lows, falling below production costs and forcing numerous farmers to abandon their crops. This situation highlights a persistent global economic disparity and an inherent imbalance within the commodity trade. The country that gave the world coffee, despite its foundational contribution and continued production, often receives a disproportionately small share of the final retail value. This enduring challenge in the global coffee supply chain underscores the complex interplay of history, culture, and economics. From its Ethiopian birthplace, coffee embarked on a significant journey northward, crossing the Red Sea into Yemen in the 15th century. It soon began to be cultivated in the Yemeni district of Arabia, and by the 16th century, its popularity had rapidly expanded across Persia, Egypt, Syria, and Turkey. The earliest substantiated evidence of coffee consumption originates from the Sufi monasteries of Yemen in the mid-15th century. Sufi mystics discovered that coffee's invigorating properties were invaluable in helping them stay awake during their extended hours of nightly devotions, chanting, and meditation, known as dhikr ceremonies. This allowed for deeper concentration and more profound spiritual experiences. For these practitioners, coffee was regarded as a sacred elixir and was even referred to as the wine of the believer, serving as an acceptable, non-intoxicating alternative to alcohol, which was forbidden by their religious strictures. The initial adoption of coffee by Sufi monks for spiritual purposes quickly evolved into its integration into broader society. As it spread from secluded monasteries to public spaces, this transition indicates that the practical benefits of coffee-enhanced alertness and focus were highly valued and easily transferable across different contexts, extending beyond religious devotion. This early association with heightened awareness and community within Sufism laid crucial groundwork for coffee's later role in fostering intellectual and social gatherings, demonstrating a remarkable continuity in its function as a facilitator of focused interaction and communal engagement. As coffee's popularity surged, public coffeehouses known as kavakhani began to emerge across the Islamic world. The first of these establishments appeared in Mecca in the 15th century, subsequently spreading to Cairo, Istanbul in the 16th century, and Baghdad. These coffeehouses rapidly transformed into vibrant social and intellectual centers. Patrons gathered not merely to consume coffee, but to engage in lively conversation, listen to music, enjoy performances, play chess, exchange gossip, and stay abreast of daily news. They fostered an environment of free and frank discourse, which earned them the esteemed moniker schools of the wise. However, the burgeoning popularity of these coffeehouses and the nature of the discussions taking place within them raised concerns among conservative imams. They were viewed with suspicion as potential venues for political gatherings and perceived vices, leading to attempts at prohibition in Mecca between 1512 and 1524. Nevertheless, these bans proved unsustainable, as coffee had become deeply ingrained in the daily rituals and cultural fabric of Arab and neighboring peoples. Ultimately, Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I issued a fatwa explicitly allowing coffee consumption, effectively legitimizing its place in society and ensuring its continued spread. The repeated attempts by authorities, including imams and rulers, to ban coffee houses illustrate a recurring historical pattern. New public spaces that facilitate uncensored discussion are often perceived as threats to the established order. The fear that such forums could lead to dissent, conspiracy, or even rebellion highlights the inherent power of collective gathering and intellectual exchange. The ultimate failure of these prohibitions, due to coffee's deep cultural embedding, demonstrates the limits of state control over popular social practices. It underscores how cultural phenomena once adopted by the populace can become powerful forces that resist suppression, shaping society from the bottom up. Coffee's arrival in Istanbul marked a profound cultural revolution within the Ottoman Empire. Locally known as kahvehane, these coffeehouses became the very pulse of social life, fostering connections, discussions, and intellectual communities that transcended traditional social classes. Turkish coffee, meticulously prepared and assessed, evolved into a ritual recognized by UNESCO as part of Turkey's intangible cultural heritage. It became a profound symbol of hospitality, often served with a glass of water and something sweet like Turkish delight. Beyond daily social interaction, coffee even played a role in diplomacy, offered to guests during meetings and negotiations as a gesture of goodwill. Furthermore, it became integrated into unique wedding traditions, such as the prospective bride preparing coffee for her suitor and his family, sometimes adding salt instead of sugar to test his character and patience. These practices demonstrate that coffee was more than a beverage. It was a powerful social tool that facilitated rituals, brought people together, and helped define social customs. European travelers returning from the Near East brought back intriguing tales of the unusual dark beverage. Coffee first arrived in Italy in the second half of the 16th century, notably reaching Venice by 1615. Facilitated by vibrant Mediterranean trade routes, Central and Eastern Europeans, in contrast, encountered coffee through their interactions with the Ottomans. With mentions of its presence in Hungary and Vienna, as early as the 16th century, and on the island of Malta via Turkish slaves in 1565, the German physician and botanist Leonhard Rowohlt was among the first Europeans to document coffee, noting it as shob in Aleppo in 1573. Much like in the Islamic world, coffee initially faced considerable resistance and skepticism upon its arrival in Europe. Opponents vehemently denounced it as the bitter invention of Satan. The local clergy in Venice, particularly alarmed by its stimulating effects, condemned the beverage, prompting Pope Clement VIII to intervene. Before rendering a judgment, the Pope decided to taste the beverage himself. He famously declared it so delicious that it would be a sin to let only infidels drink it, thereby granting it crucial papal approval. This endorsement was pivotal for coffee's acceptance across the continent, as it assuaged religious fears and opened the door for its widespread consumption. The privileged classes, charmed by its exoticism, quickly embraced it, aligning with the fashionable turqueries of the era. Intellectuals, recognizing its ability to promote alertness and clear thinking, also became early adopters. The initial religious condemnation of coffee, observed in both the Islamic world and Europe, highlights a common societal reaction to novel stimulating substances. However, the pivotal role played by authoritative figures, such as Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I and Pope Clement VIII, in legitimizing coffee demonstrates how top-down endorsements can effectively overcome significant cultural and religious barriers. This pattern reveals that cultural acceptance is not solely an organic process. It can be profoundly influenced by powerful figures, especially when the inherent appeal and utility of the product are compelling enough to warrant such intervention. With papal approval and growing curiosity, coffee houses rapidly proliferated across major European cities throughout the 17th century, quickly becoming vital centers of social activity and communication. The first European coffee house outside the Ottoman Empire is recorded to have opened in Venice in 1645. In England, these establishments earned the popular moniker penny universities because, for the modest price of a penny, one could purchase a cup of coffee and gain access to stimulating conversation and intellectual debate. By the mid-17th century, London alone boasted over 300 coffee houses, many of which attracted patrons with common interests, such as merchants, shippers, brokers, and artists, fostering specialized communities. European coffee houses, particularly these penny universities, provided accessible public forums for discussion, a stark contrast to the exclusive salons typically frequented only by the elite. This accessibility meant that ideas, including those central to the Enlightenment such as reason, scientific inquiry, and the questioning of traditional authority, could be debated and disseminated among a much wider and more diverse audience. This fostered social mobility and democratized knowledge, fundamentally shaping modern Western intellectual landscapes. Coffee's stimulating properties were widely regarded as the perfect companion for intellectual fervor, enabling sustained, clear-headed discourse. This direct link between a beverage and a major intellectual movement demonstrates coffee's profound, albeit indirect, role in shaping modern Western thought and societal structures, transcending mere consumption to facilitate cultural and political transformation. Key cities developed distinct coffeehouse cultures. London, Lloyd's Coffee House, for example, famously evolved into the renowned Lloyd's of London insurance market, illustrating how these spaces could foster highly specialized business and intellectual communities. Paris. Establishments like Le Procope became celebrated meeting places for artists and intellectuals, including prominent Enlightenment figures such as Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu, and Diderot. Here, ideas were exchanged and debated with vigor, often shaping the very course of history. Vienna. The first Viennese coffee house is said to have opened in 1683. Reportedly utilizing coffee beans left behind by the defeated Ottoman Turks after the siege of Vienna, Jerzy Franciszek Kolczycki, a Polish officer, is credited with establishing this first coffee house and popularizing the innovative addition of milk and sugar to the brew. This practice laid the foundation for the distinct Viennese coffee culture and contributed to the eventual development of the world-famous cappuccino. As demand for coffee surged across, European powers became increasingly determined to break the Arabian monopoly on coffee cultivation. In the latter half of the 17th century, the Dutch successfully obtained coffee tree seedlings. After initial unsuccessful attempts to establish plantations in India, they achieved remarkable success on the island of Java in modern-day Indonesia. The coffee trees thrived, leading to a productive and growing coffee trade. The Dutch subsequently expanded cultivation to the islands of Sumatra and Sulawesi. Notably, they also pioneered the world's first coffee blend, combining Arabian mocha coffee with beans grown on Java, a blend that endures to this day. French efforts also played a crucial role in coffee's global spread. In 1714, the mayor of Amsterdam presented a young coffee tree as a gift to King Louis XIV of France. This single seedling, planted in the Royal Botanical Garden in Paris, became the progenitor of coffee cultivation throughout the Americas. A decade later, in 1723, Gabriel Desclous, a French naval officer, heroically transported a seedling from this very tree to the island of Martinique. The plant flourished in the Caribbean climate, leading to the growth of over 18 million coffee trees on the island within the next 50 years. Marking a pivotal moment in coffee's transatlantic journey, coffee's arrival in Brazil, destined to become a global coffee powerhouse, is attributed to the efforts of Francisco de Melo Palhita, a Portuguese military officer. By the 19th century, coffee cultivation had transformed into a major industry in Brazil. With the country producing some of the finest beans globally, coffee exports rapidly came to dominate the Brazilian economy, accounting for over 40% of its total exports by the 1840s. This era of global expansion saw coffee fundamentally transform into a commodity driven by European colonial ambitions. Its production became heavily associated with exploitative labor practices, including widespread slavery, particularly in Brazil. Their large fazendas or plantations relied extensively on enslaved African, indigenous, and mixed-race labor. As global demand for coffee continued to grow and fertile soils in older regions became exhausted, production shifted. In São Paulo, new coffee barons emerged who favored immigrant labor over enslaved individuals, a shift that contributed to the eventual abolition of slavery in Brazil. By the close of the 19th century, coffee had descended to become the third most valuable internationally traded commodity in the world, with the Americas playing a central role in both its production and consumption. The rapid global expansion of coffee cultivation, orchestrated by European colonial powers such as the Dutch, French, and Portuguese, directly led to the establishment of vast, large-scale plantations that relied heavily on exploited labor, including the brutal institution of slavery. This demonstrates how a seemingly benign product like coffee became deeply embedded within the exploitative economic systems of the colonial era. The transition from slave labor to immigrant labor in Brazil reveals a complex interplay between evolving economic incentives, mounting social pressures, and the changing nature of labor exploitation. While this shift contributed to the abolition of slavery, it also solidified a global economic structure where raw material producers, often former colonies, remained vulnerable to the unpredictable whims of the market and biased trade rules. This historical legacy continues to shape contemporary ethical concerns within the coffee industry. Before the advent of industrialization, coffee preparation relied on a variety of traditional methods and specialized equipment, often unique to individual cultures. The Ottomans, for instance, pioneered the sez, also known as ibrik, a distinctive copper pot used for brewing strong, finely ground Turkish coffee. In other regions, simpler filtration techniques involved using cloth bags or coffee socks. Later innovations, such as big-in pots equipped with metal filters, significantly improved the filtration process, resulting in a cleaner and more refined brew. The Industrial Revolution ushered in a period of profound technological advancements that fundamentally reshaped coffee brewing. The introduction of steam power proved particularly revolutionary. In 1822, the Frenchman Louis Bernard Rabaut invented the first automated coffee machine, which utilized a combination of steam and boiling water to extract coffee. This innovation drastically reduced brewing times, marking a significant leap forward in efficiency. The birth of espresso, a cornerstone of modern coffee culture, unfolded through a series of key inventions. Angelo Moriando. The world's first patent for an espresso machine was granted to Italian inventor Angelo Moriando. His bulky, steam-powered apparatus was designed primarily for bulk brewing, capable of reducing brewing time by an impressive 90%. However, this pioneering invention was never commercially produced, and Moriando himself largely faded from historical records. Luigi Bezzera. Building on earlier concepts, Luigi Bezzera advanced the idea of single-shot espresso, focusing on a method for quickly brewing coffee directly into the cup. Desiderio Pavoni. Pavoni acquired Bezzera's patents and significantly refined the design, incorporating crucial innovations such as the pressure release valve and the steam wand. Together, Bezzera and Pavone made a significant impact at the 1906 Milan International Exposition, where they introduced espresso, effectively launching the world's first espresso bar. Achille Gaia. A pivotal transformation occurred with Achille Gaia, who revolutionized the espresso machine by inventing the lever-driven system after World War II. This mechanism used a spring piston to force water through finely ground coffee at higher pressures, creating the distinctive golden brown foam known as crema. Initially, this crema was met with skepticism, even being referred to as scum, until Gaia cleverly rebranded it as cafe cream. Further evolution, the 1930s witnessed the development of the first pump-driven espresso machines, which eliminated the need for manual pressure, leading to greater consistency and efficiency. By the 1960s, espresso machines had evolved into a more horizontal design, allowing baristas to interact more easily with customers. This design shift further integrated espresso preparation into the social fabric of coffee culture, transforming it into a performance and fostering deeper connections between barista and patron. The evolution of coffee brewing technology, from rudimentary methods to sophisticated steam-powered machines and the revolutionary espresso, reflects a continuous human drive for efficiency, consistency, and an enhanced sensory experience. Each innovation, particularly the development of espresso, did not merely change how coffee was made, but fundamentally redefined what coffee could be, leading to entirely new cultural practices and consumption patterns. The shift to horizontal machines, for instance, allowed baristas to engage directly with customers, transforming coffee preparation into a visible art form and fostering social connection. This demonstrates how technological advancements can directly shape sensory profiles and redefine social rituals around consumption, elevating coffee beyond mere utility to an art form. The invention and evolution of instant coffee also represent a significant chapter in coffee's history. The concept of a coffee compound dates back to 1771 in the UK. More soluble versions were developed later by New Zealander David Stang in 1890 and Chicago chemist Satoru Kato in 1901. However, it was constant Louis Washington who achieved mass appeal for instant coffee in 1909. Despite its initially disagreeable taste by modern standards, instant coffee gained significant traction during World War I, being introduced as a caked form of ration for soldiers. Following World War I, surplus of coffee in Brazil led and the Brazilian Coffee Institute to collaborate on developing a more modern instant coffee, which then became widely popular during World War II. The significant popularization of instant coffee during both World War I and II illustrates how large-scale societal disruptions, such as global conflicts, can accelerate the adoption of convenient, mass-produced goods, even if initial quality is compromised. The substantial coffee surplus in Brazil after World War I also demonstrates how economic pressures can drive innovation in food preservation and processing. This development created a new, highly accessible tier of coffee consumption that prioritized ease and speed over traditional brewing methods. It laid the groundwork for coffee's pervasive presence in homes and workplaces, fundamentally altering consumer expectations and setting the stage for later waves of coffee culture that would either embrace or react against this convenience-driven market. Other significant brewing advancements include the 19th century invention of the French press, which allowed for a longer steeping process to extract more flavor. Drip brewers became increasingly common, and more recently, innovations like the AeroPress, introduced in 2006, have emerged, catering to diverse brewing preferences and continuing the evolution of coffee preparation. The history of modern coffee consumption is often categorized into distinct waves, each representing a significant shift in how coffee is produced, consumed, and perceived. The first wave of coffee emerging in the late 19th and early 20th centuries was primarily characterized by industrialization and mass production. This era saw brands like Folgers and Maxwell House transform coffee into a household staple, prioritizing convenience, affordability, and widespread accessibility. Pre-ground, lighter roasts sold in grocery stores became the norm, with the primary emphasis placed on functionality and providing a daily caffeine fix. The second wave, which began to take shape around the 1960s, marked a significant departure from the first wave's commodity-driven approach. The focus shifted from mere utility to a curated coffee experience. Alfred Peet, a Dutch immigrant and coffee roaster, is often recognized as the grandfather of specialty coffee for his pioneering emphasis on dark roasts and the importance of bean origin. His principles profoundly influenced the founders of Starbucks. Starbucks, founded in Seattle in 1971, became the dominant force of this wave. Howard Schultz, inspired by his observations of vibrant Italian coffeehouses, envisioned Starbucks not just as a place to buy coffee, but as a third place, a social space distinct from home and work. Starbucks effectively popularized and mass-distributed this cafe culture, successfully reframing coffee as an affordable luxury. The company's meteoric success stemmed from several key strategic pillars, including a saturation strategy that allowed geographical dominance without market cannibalization, continuous product innovation, and vertical integration of its supply chain, which enabled greater control over costs, processes, and quality from bean to cup. Starbucks' approach did not simply involve selling coffee, it involved selling an experience and a lifestyle. Howard Schultz's vision of the third place was a deliberate and calculated strategy to establish a social hub that transcended mere consumption. This strategic move fundamentally shifted the value proposition of coffee from its intrinsic qualities to the environment and social interaction it facilitated. This commodification of social space and experience profoundly influenced urban planning, social habits, and the global perception of coffee. It demonstrated that consumers were willing to pay a premium not just for the product itself, but for the intangible benefits of community, comfort, and a carefully curated environment, thereby fundamentally reshaping the retail landscape. The third wave of coffee, gaining prominence in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, represents a movement towards coffee as an artisanal product, emphasizing quality, transparency, and appreciation for its nuanced flavors. The term specialty coffee itself is widely attributed to coffee importer Erna Knudsen, who used it in a 1973 interview to describe beans of the best flavor produced in special microclimates. This wave is characterized by a strong emphasis on single-origin coffees over blends, highlighting unique flavor profiles and a growing interest in ethical sourcing. Distinctions from the second wave include the rise of latte art, a preference for lighter roasts that showcase inherent bean characteristics, sustainability narratives, and the emergence of new, refined processing methods in coffee production. This period has seen a significant increase in specialty coffee consumption, particularly in Europe and Asia, driven by the proliferation of independent and artisan cafes. Organizations like the Specialty Coffee Association have established rigorous standards for specialty coffee at every stage of production. From green bean defects to water quality and brew strength, the waves of coffee consumption represent a continuous evolution of consumer demand and industry response. From the basic utility of the first wave to the social experience of the second wave and the artisanal appreciation of the third wave, each period builds upon and reacts to the previous one. This progression demonstrates a growing sophistication in coffee consumption and a deepening cultural integration, where coffee is increasingly valued for its unique characteristics and the story behind its production. The current emerging fourth wave of coffee culture is deeply concerned with sustainability, fair trade, and direct trade practices. This movement directly addresses the historical colonial legacies and economic disparities that have long plagued coffee-producing regions, where farmers often receive a disproportionately small share of the final retail value. The origins of the fair trade movement are rooted in the dire struggles of Mexican coffee farmers following the collapse of world coffee prices in the late 1980s. This crisis was exacerbated by the suspension of the International Coffee Agreement in 1989, which had previously regulated global coffee trade through export quotas and buffer stocks, maintaining more stable prices for growers. In response, a Dutch NGO, Solidaridad, and a farmer organization, UCIRA, created the first fair trade certification initiative, the Max Havelaar label, in 1989. This label, named after a fictional character who opposed exploitation in Dutch colonies, aimed to ensure coffee farmers received a fair and stable price that covered their sustainable production costs. Fair trade principles include a minimum price for Arabica coffee plus an extra premium for community investment. The rise of fair trade directly confronts the historical colonial legacy and the persistent economic disparities observed in coffee-producing nations. It signifies a growing consumer and industry awareness of the imperative for ethical sourcing and producer welfare, actively attempting to rebalance the power dynamics within the global coffee supply chain. However, the movement is not without its complexities, as discussions around fair trade labeling issues and concerns about child labor in some supply chains continue to highlight the ongoing challenges in achieving true equity and comprehensive ethical sourcing. Contemporary coffee trends in the 21st century reflect a dynamic and rapidly evolving landscape. The early 2020s saw the viral popularity of Dalgona coffee, a whipped coffee creation that became a social media sensation during quarantine. Other trends include nitro coffee and the flat white becoming mainstream. The influence of social media has been transformative, turning coffee into a highly visual and shareable experience that extends beyond just taste to encompass lifestyle and identity. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook have fostered a new generation of coffee enthusiasts who share their love for coffee through images, videos, and reviews. This digital amplification accelerates trends and fosters global communities of coffee enthusiasts, creating a powerful feedback loop between consumption and cultural representation. The perception of coffee as an experience, rather than merely a beverage, is a driving force, particularly in emerging markets like Asia, where coffee shops serve as hubs for social gatherings and co-working spaces, reflecting a growing appreciation for coffee as a cultural phenomenon. From its fabled discovery by a goat herder in the Ethiopian highlands to its central role in Sufi monasteries, then to its transformation of social and intellectual life in Ottoman and European coffeehouses, and finally, to its global commodification and the modern waves of coffee culture. The journey of coffee is a testament to its profound and multifaceted impact on human civilization. It has served as a spiritual aid, a catalyst for intellectual discourse, a driver of colonial economies, and a symbol of modern lifestyle and social connection. Coffee's enduring significance lies in its remarkable adaptability and its capacity to transcend mere sustenance, becoming deeply embedded in diverse cultural practices, economic systems, and social rituals across continents. The historical trajectory reveals a dynamic interplay between human ingenuity, economic forces, and cultural evolution, all centered around this potent bean. As the industry continues to evolve, with increasing emphasis on ethical sourcing, sustainability, and the ever-changing preferences of a global consumer base, coffee remains a powerful force, constantly redefining its place in our daily lives and shaping the future of global commerce and culture. The story of coffee is, in essence, a microcosm of human history itself, a narrative of discovery, adaptation, conflict, and connection, all brewed into a single, captivating cup.